got a lot of people that have joined. So um, welcome to this webinar on open data certification. And what I'd like to do, as we do traditionally, is to do land acknowledgement. And if I could ask Nathan to run that video on the land acknowledgement, please.
We acknowledge that the land the Go Open Data Association is webcasting from is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Toronto was built on sacred land that is part of an agreement between Indigenous peoples and extended to allied nations to peacefully and respectfully care for it.
Thank you very much. And I'll introduce myself. I'm Yuri Konga. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Community Engagement. And today's webinar will be focusing on an update to the open data certification development that's been undertaken over the last little while. And the co-chairs will be presenting, the co-chairs of the working group, who is Paul, who is the executive director for the Canadian Open Data Society, and Jamie Leitch, who is the chair of the Go Open Data Association board of directors. And so they'll be starting off with kind of an overall intro by Paul, and then Jamie will follow with a bit of a presentation. And I would ask that everybody put their mics on mute, please. And if you have any questions related to any of the materials that is being presented, I would ask that you put the question in the group chat, and then we'll follow through with those questions once the presentations are complete. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Connor to do the intro for us. Paul?
Thank you, Yuri. Well, I'm going to do a bit of history. We've actually been working on this for some time, since very late 2022, with consultations that were conducted by the Go Open Data Association early in 2023. Subsequent to those consultation sessions, we assembled the feedback we received into a green paper, which I will summarize for everyone's benefit, that we propose to initiate a certification program for open data practitioners and those wishing to become such practitioners in Canada and beyond, to allow these industry entrants or practitioners, their employers and their peers, to gain assurance that they possess a level of professional knowledge and experience that is most likely to bring an open data publication or applications program to successful fruition and optimum impact. We intend for this to have low barriers to entry, consistent with a standard of rigor that will produce value for practitioners, their employers, and the public at large. There were countless reasons, actually, why we would consider creating such a program. I actually ran up to about 13 or 14, but we'll just go over the top few. It would validate that an individual has the requisite skills and knowledge to perform high quality and high impact work related to open data. Provide a mechanism to generate trust in the processes used and the quality of the data made available to end users. Increase the confidence of funding bodies that may underwrite programs for the publication, sharing, and application of open data. Validate that an organization which is mindful of the certification of its open data practitioners is working towards being more open and working with other organizations and citizens or consumers or stakeholders. And other things like raising mainstream awareness of open data, and providing a roadmap for other organizations outside of government to provide open data. And one thing that particularly excites me about the possibility of this program, providing a cause-motivated on-ramp for non-technical or unskilled persons to gain data literacy and other valuable competencies with which they can secure employment and or pursue public service. We have a bit of a roadmap for initiating the program. I'll leave that to Jamie, but the target market is also an interesting part of the green paper. Of course, we have many governments across Canada that have open data mandates, 600 plus First Nations, Métis and Inuit governments, 162 cities among 698 total municipalities, upwards of 225 provincial or territorial government ministries, 130 federal departments and agencies, 652 public library systems, and 436 post-secondary institutions. Those are the counts across Canada as of the time of the green paper. So around 2,400 organizations just for starters as a base before we get to the really exciting prospect of bringing new people into this. And we also think that large corporations should be doing open data and should be actually helping us to make more people data literate. So that's another exciting opportunity. Citizen science, which is a theme of the summit this year, open science, is another exciting avenue for open data certification practitioners. And I think I'll stop there just because there's so much possibility in the green paper that I would pretty much consume the hour, but I will pass it over to Jamie now because I know you want to see just exactly how this will all work.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Paul. Let me just share my screen here. Okay, well, thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day to hear what the Open Data Certification Working Group has been working on. We hope to encourage feedback and input from you, the broader open data community. So please feel free to post your comments in the chat as we go. And then I'm hoping at the end, I'm hoping we have some time for some more open discussion. I'm going to be presenting what we've done with respect to knowledge domains, certification criteria, certification levels. And then hopefully, like I said, we have some time for some questions and commentary. It's important to note that what I'm going to show you is a work in progress. And part of our process is to engage the broader community for feedback, which is hopefully part of why you're here. You'll see some question marks throughout the content. And that means that there are some undecided areas that definitely need further discussion and consideration. And just before I get into it, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize the work and the members of the working group. We have Eric Carr from the County of Dufferin. I don't know if he's here, but he was involved, as well as Eugene Chen, who is the chair of the Canadian Open Data Society. We also have Ben Dick from the City of Ottawa, Stephen Way from Mohawk College, and of course, Paul Connor, the Executive Director of CODS, and myself. So much of our time in the working group has actually been focused on this idea of knowledge domains. And what are knowledge domains? Well, our working idea of it is that they're broader topics or subject areas and areas of expertise that a community of professionals agrees someone should have to effectively work in the field of open data. They include the technical, ethical, policy, and governance core competencies that are relevant to the open data space. Where do they come from? Hopefully, they're developed and validated by the broader open data community. Those people that work with, create, and publish open data. Best practices across all sectors of open data help to inform the knowledge domains, and together with the idea of a body of knowledge for open data practitioners and users. So why are these important for our certification? Well, they're an agreed set of domains that provides a standard framework for consistent skills and knowledge, which helps to ensure a high quality of practice across all sectors that might use open data. So we're talking public, private, international, you name it. Knowledge domains can help professionals in the field identify areas for growth and advancement and ensure that future endeavors that we undertake are aligned with the best practices. They also demonstrate a commitment of our practice to remain relevant in the changing space. And also formal knowledge domains can provide greater assurances to the public and to employers that these certified professionals meet a recognized and expected standard of expertise and ethics. How will these be applied to certification? First, the applicants for certification will be required to demonstrate how their education and practical experience aligns with each knowledge domain. The candidates would not necessarily have to have experience and education in all subdomains because there could be quite a few. And some people may specialize in some areas and not in others. But there will be minimum requirements, and the experience that they do have would have to align with those domains and subdomain areas of knowledge. Secondly, we'd want these knowledge domains to be refined and updated as the field of open data evolves to include emerging skills, technologies, and practices across all sectors. Thirdly, we want to encourage the broader open data community to provide feedback and help shape these domains to ensure they remain relevant. As our community advances, so would the body of knowledge that defines what an open data professional is in our society. There are other bodies of knowledge that we have recognized and taken a look at and referenced throughout our work. There are more than you see here. These are a couple of examples that I am familiar with. There's the Data Management Association body of knowledge, which is very refined and has been in place for a long time and very highly respected as a body of knowledge that defines data management professionals. And then there's the Geographic Information Science and Technology body of knowledge as well. And I believe the GISP sort of makes use of that body of knowledge. And our challenge is encompassing those overlapping domains, because there are quite a lot of overlapping areas of knowledge in the open data field of practice. Domains such as data governance, metadata, data quality. So our challenge is recognizing those overlapping areas, including them specifically in our body of knowledge, to make it a unique document. So here are the knowledge domains that we have come up with and that we're working on. Our working titles essentially for what we feel defines the body of knowledge of an open data professional practitioner. And they kind of go in kind of like an advancing order. So open data fundamentals, obviously the first most basic area, data governance and policy. And again, this is one of those sort of overlapping domains that can creep into many different professions and areas of practice, as well as data management and technology. But these are still all very relevant specifically to open data practitioners. And then getting a little bit more specific as we advance up to level 4, open data standards and interoperability specifically for open data. There are data standards that are many of them and general across the spectrum. Specifically, we would focus on those that are widely used and accepted in open data. Then we get more up into sort of a management or strategy realm with number 5 with open data leadership and advocacy. And then finally, the most advanced level we feel would be more in the open data project and program management. And again, a sort of an overlapping area with general project management skills and expertise. But we want to be able to apply those directly to open data practice. So here are some of the knowledge domains. actually all of them. Here's 3 of them here, on 2 slides. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to sort of highlight a few of them. What you see under each title is what we've identified as these subdomains or sub areas. So obviously the introduction to open data principles, it's the concept, significance, and benefits of open data, particularly from a government context. The coverage of accessibility, usability, and the foundational elements that make data open. We're looking at the history of open data and the impact, public engagement, transparency, and innovation, basic data management skills, open data standards and formats, and community engagement fundamentals. Then we get into data governance and policy. Again, like this is an overlapping area. So learning how to craft policies that ensure data is open by default, focusing on transparency and accessibility. We have ethical considerations and compliance, data governance and frameworks, looking at privacy, transparency, accountability, ethical data collection, processing, sharing practices to ensure fairness, looking at the legal frameworks, so freedom of information laws, ensuring adherence to local, provincial, federal regulations, knowledge of third-party data licensing and the impacts on open data. Indigenous data sovereignty is another one. Understanding of the fundamental rights of Indigenous peoples to control, access, interpret, manage, and collectively own data about their communities, lands, and cultures. Privacy and security is an obvious one. Data owners, stewards, domain experts. It's the concept of the various levels of data interaction and how this applies to sort of an open data lifecycle. Getting into data management and technology. So again, a very sort of broad overlapping area. Looking at data management techniques, so practices for data collection, storage, and retrieval on modern data platforms like CCAN, ArcGIS Hub, others. QA, QC concepts and techniques, ensuring that we are publishing the highest quality open data. Technology utilization, programming and database querying, a little bit more specific. Data visualization techniques, like an understanding of the visualization tools and techniques that more effectively structure and allow our open data to be utilized by the public. Metadata management, again, quite a large area of knowledge and expertise, but again, specifically applied to open data. Data maintenance techniques, emerging technologies, the list goes on here. Open data standards and interoperability, so a little bit more specific, looking at how data quality principles are applied, metadata standards and application to open data, interoperability formats and techniques, accessibility standards, making sure that the data is available and accessible to all. Future trends in the data standards, data portal design, concepts of effective data portal design and user interface design, discoverability, open data leadership and advocacy. So looking at methods to communicate open data initiatives to a diverse range of stakeholders, engaging with citizens and other stakeholders, technologies for engagement, training and capacity building within your organization, advocacy as a skill, building your data-driven culture in your institution or your organization, and accessibilities and inclusion. And then finally, project and program management as it applies to open data programs and projects. So there's quite a lot there. Like I said, we spent quite a bit of time on these. We're looking for feedback and suggestions and maybe some more further refinement of these areas. We've also spent some time looking at certification criteria and how we would evaluate applicants for certification. We've been leaning towards a point and portfolio-based approach to evaluating the applicants. The idea of an exam has also been floated. This is something that, again, we need feedback on from the broader community. There would be points assigned to the various types of educational experiences, being from a formal accredited institution or informal courses or even conferences and webinars. Each level of certification, which I'll talk about in the next slide, would require different point minimums in the prescribed knowledge domains. There would also be points assigned to employment experience or even non-employment experience. Again, we want this to be sort of a low barrier to entry. So not restricting it to people that are full-time open data practitioners is important. A lot of what we do is off the corner of our desk. So we need to kind of recognize that and as also give value to that. And there could also be others that could be documented. We'd want to recognize the applicant's contributions to our community as well through a large variety of opportunities and activities. Those include conference participation, authoring publications, student project involvement and mentorship, even being an application reviewer for this certification program is something that we would give credit for in this area. Through this endeavor, we also hope to develop possibly an online community of certified professionals to exchange ideas and knowledge with each other. So it's possible there could be some credit given for participation within that community. We would also develop a code of ethics with the community that applicants would be required to agree to and uphold, as well as possibly a letter of reference for some levels of certification. And the code of ethics brings it a whole nother sort of topic, which is the idea that somebody breaches the code of ethics and we have to have a review committee and we have to have procedures and processes for dealing with those sorts of things. But that again speaks to sort of bolstering the relevance and the teeth behind this certification. It's the public would recognize it as something that is, the certified professionals are very ethical and they're held to this code of ethics. So now we have our certification levels. These are sort of we've separated it out into 4 levels of certification with increasingly more stringent requirements as you go up. The first level we envision is a low barrier entry we've called it Explore. So we would have an acronym of CODE, Certified Open Data Explorer. This level is intended for users or proponents of open data that maybe don't have any professional experience, but it gets them in the door and started on the path to a more advanced certification. So the idea with this is that there would be a series of basic training modules and possibly a quiz that the applicant would take to show a basic level of understanding of open data and also demonstrate some experience working with it. Also with this level, they would become members of the Canadian Open Data Society and the Go Open Data Association and have access to the benefits and resources of those organizations as well. The second level we've come up with, we are calling, the working title is Certified Open Data Practitioner, Associate, or User, and there's a question mark. We don't really know what the best title is, but these are ideas, and you can see the associated acronyms that we would have. This level would require everything from the first level, plus a certain amount of education experience points in the open data fundamentals knowledge domain. We would also be looking for at least 1 year of employment and or other equivalent project work experience in open data. Like I said before, we don't all have full-time jobs in open data, so we would need a way to recognize that and give credit. As well, at this stage, we would be looking for a sign-off on the code of ethics. Now, starting at this level as well, another idea we've talked about is the ability to springboard directly to this level from nothing. So the applicant would have to demonstrate that they have the appropriate experience and education to get to this, would be subject to the review panel approval. Our next level, Certified Open Data Specialist / Creator / Expert with a question mark. So again, working title that we don't really have something concrete yet, but again, looking for feedback. This level would require all of the previous level, plus education and experience in data governance and policy, data management and technology, and open data standards and interoperability domains. We'd be looking for 2 or more of equivalent professional experience, 2 more years of professional equivalent experience, and possibly an employer or certified member reference letter. would also require the code of ethics sign off, everything from the previous level. And again, there could be a springboard to this level with the right documented education and experience. The idea behind this is that if you entered an organization, you were not certified, but you were tasked with creating an open data program, initiative, portal, whatever, and you were successful in doing that, that would kind of be like the demonstrated experience to get to this level. The fourth and final top level, certified open data professional / strategist, manager, master. And again, these are working titles. This level would require all of the previous levels of education and experience, plus minimum points in the open data leadership and advocacy and open data project and program management knowledge domains. Something to note also is giving credit for other types of certifications, like the program project management professional, for example. That could help you springboard directly to this level, because we would apply that as credit towards the knowledge domains in the program and project management. For this one, we'd be looking for 4 or more years of experience or equivalent in the open data field, and there'd also be a springboard possible to this level. So those are the 4 levels that we've come up with. As far as costs go, this is very early days. It's important to note here that these are very preliminary working numbers, and they have yet to be tested against the business case. So not numbers that the working group has tossed around and looked at other certifications and etc. So important to note that. Like I said, with level 1 Explorer, very low barrier to entry. You get CODs and good membership. That combined cost is about $118. You can upgrade from level 1 to level 2, level 3. We were looking at 400, level 3, 500, and then around 600. Again, something we require input from and be able to test this against our business case to really come up with the number. So all that being said, this is the part of the presentation where we're reaching out for volunteers and contributors to this program. We really want this to be co-authored and shaped by the broader community of open data professionals. So we are looking for course authors and contributors and reviewers. This is a listing of some of the courses that we would probably need to develop on our own, unless we can find something else out there. We want to give people sort of like, here's the examples of the courses that you can take to satisfy these knowledge domains, and kind of give them a head start in that. So here's a listing. We're reaching out, anybody interested in contributing, authoring some of these courses or reviewing some of them. When we're done, we'd be looking for that, people to help out there. Again, looking for volunteers. When we get this program off the ground and running, we're going to need application reviewers, people to review the applications and ensure that there's minimum criteria and compliance with our program. This would actually help you get points towards recertification. I don't think I touched on that, but something we need to figure out, as well as how long the initial certification would be good for until you need to renew or recertify. And there would be some criteria, a point-based, portfolio-based criteria to recertify or renew your certifications. Being an application reviewer with this initiative would count towards that. As well, we're still looking for working group members. There's 5 or 6 of us in the group right now. We have similar backgrounds in our experience, and we need to sort of diversify. We're looking for open data professionals from all sectors and areas. As well, part of this working group, you would acquire points for recertification. So here's some questions for feedback and discussion. I'm not sure, Yuri, how you want to handle this. Just put it in the chat, or if people actually want to speak up and we can have a more open discussion. But
yeah, Jamie, we can start with the questions that come up on the chat. The first one is, around the certification costs, whether it's a yearly amount or a one-time cost.
I think Paul and I could both handle this, but undecided. I could tell you that my idea would be that that would be the initial certification cost.
Yeah.
And let's say it lasted for 3 years, and then recertification would be some kind of other nominal fee per year.
I agree with that.
And again, that would maintain your membership in the two organizations.
Yes.
Is that the only question?
That's the only one we have at this time.
Okay.
I could maybe
Oh,
ask
I got one.
a clarification. If this certification costs were to last for, say, 3 years, the costs for being a member of either association is an annual cost. So how does that work?
Well, I guess I'll jump in and say that that low cost is just sort of something we would want people to maintain, stay in touch with all the professional opportunities that would give them the non-course or non-experience related points to continue their certification. I think that's mild. The bigger costs of higher levels of certification would be every 3 years, though. I see some other questions. We're starting to roll along here. Let's see if I can address. I'm sorry, it's a little hard for me. The chat window comes out real small. All training materials will be available in French too. That is my intention. Absolutely. Canadian Open Data Society is a bilingual national organization, and I don't think it should be too difficult to render these materials in French as well. For example, our Open Data 101 video that we did a couple of years ago was alternating English and French in the same video.
Just to add to that, Paul, it's possible that we could have somebody volunteer with helping us with translation.
Yes. I think domain specialists would be ideal in that case.
I see Alex has his hand up there too.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask about maybe if we could bring back the slide that had the levels. So one of the things that I think is interesting, maybe a different way of thinking about this, because these are sort of, you kind of move up through the levels, but maybe there's sort of two streams of thought around this. There's components in open data environment that are highly technical, people standing up environments, doing that sort of thing. But there's also the sort of more management stream that is typically, champions of, fostering innovation, that sort of thing, that may not lead from one into the other. So maybe I missed it, but it seems like you have to progress here. And when maybe it's there's a potential for entering directly in 3 or something like that. There might be a little bit of a different way to think about it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and we have talked about sort of the two streams, and this is how we sort of separated those out. So highly technical, like you said, standing up environments, writing the portals, all the technical programming and things that happen in the background. You could get up to level 3 with that, and more of the sort of strategist and manager level would be 4. And so the idea is like you could strive for level 4, but if that's not really your area of expertise or where you want to go, you definitely wouldn't have to get there. You can remain a CODS or CODC, whatever we decide. And this level 4 would sort of be reserved for that sort of more management and strategist level.
So that's sort of the springboard approach. Then you can sort of enter at a different level based on your previous experiences sort of outlined here, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely a possibility. So like if you've been managing, an open data program for 5 or 10 years, Obviously, we're not going to, plunk you into one of these lower levels, Explorer or something like that. You would be qualified. You may be qualified for this level 4. You do have to demonstrate, a certain level of education and experience in all of those knowledge domains, right? So there would be a requirement there. But yeah, certainly this is where this idea of the springboard comes in. I think, Paul, is that sort of what you're thinking?
Absolutely. I think there was a question about recertification requirements. I incline to think certainly maintaining your fluency, building on your experience, attending events, volunteering, that would definitely be something that would be looked at. You wouldn't want to start from zero again. There may be new practices that have arisen that the community collectively indicates to us in some form that should be part of this going forward, assimilated, as it were, into the evaluation. I don't anticipate that would happen a lot or very often, but it is something we would have a duty to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, so initial certification fee, let's say that initial certification is good for 2 years. So at the beginning of the 3rd year, you would pay a recertification fee. And that would go towards, maintaining the platform, the software platform, to intake all that information and the applications, and having the application reviewers go through that. So kind of like to cover that overhead. Requirements for recertification, yeah, those would all be documented, and it would be a continuation. I'm seeing a continuation of the initial certification. So you would have to demonstrate, say, further experience, either professional or equivalent, in the open data field. You would have to demonstrate that you were continuous learning throughout that time. And we would assign a point value, and you'd have to get a minimum point value to get that, as well as with sort of volunteer or sort of contributing to the open data broader community through mentoring or student projects or something like that. So sort of like the 3 main areas. And we could also have another sort of other category of qualifications that maybe doesn't fit within any of those, or maybe it's sprinkled throughout. So I think this is again where we're looking for feedback.
Jamie and Paul, I have an interesting question here that was sent to me directly. The question is, what efforts would be made to ensure that this certification becomes recognized in the industry? And what merit do you expect this certification to hold among employers?
That is a good question. It would be pretty speculative at this point. But I imagine we would first engage everyone who has an open data program to let them know that there is this standard that we are establishing for practitioners, and that they will want to be a part of it to have additional bolstering of the profile and the veracity of their programs, the credibility, I should say, of their programs. There's also been talk of certifying or having a maturity model applied to open data portals. We have a couple of members of the association that have specifically said, hey, we would like to see our work that's out there also have some standards applied to it. And so that could go hand in glove with this. So that you'd have both together. You wouldn't have one without the other. And I think that in general, the government of Canada and various provincial governments are looking to increase data literacy, to increase the number of qualified persons, and that we are in general looking to increase the publication and usage of open data. And so hopefully what we get into is a bit of a virtuous cycle in this regard.
And just to add to that, Paul, if I could, the credibility is really going to be driven, I think, a lot by numbers. And that's going to require like massive public marketing campaigns, etc., to really get the word out. And like any grassroots kind of thing like this, it's going to take some time to build that. As well as another main component I see with credibility is having this code of ethics and review board. So this is a way that these professionals can be held accountable, right? Open data is all about transparency and accountability. Well, our professionals that are certified also have to be held accountable to what they do and how they practice. And then as well, another thing, the third thing is really to keep our knowledge domains and our body of knowledge right up to date with how things are moving in the open data space with technology and best practice. So I think those are three of the things that would bolster our credibility there. But that's a great question, and I think it really drives to the heart of what we're doing, right? If this certification is going to have value, it's got to have credibility, it's got to have recognition. Similar to how the GSP certification or Canadian Institute of Geomatics or certified data professional, those things. So thanks for the question. Great question. So I see Eric Carr's in here. Hi, Eric. Yeah, Open Data Association memberships, webinars, conferences, etc. Yeah, so all of those things would be given credit towards this certification. Yeah, good points, Jamie. This idea of separate streams. So I think that's something that this has come up twice now, something that we should probably look at. And I know other certifications have that as well. Like I believe the Canadian Institute of Geomatics, I think they have like certified geomatics specialists. Well, I know they do. And then I think there is another completely different stream. Certified geomatics manager or something. Thank you for that though. Great comment.
I wonder, Jamie, if we could go back to the slides where we talk about the naming of the levels. I'd like to get people's thoughts or feelings on, what we would call these levels. Start with, I think Explorer is pretty good. I think that stands up over time. So we don't really have a lot of alternatives. And it's got a nice acronym too. You got to remember these acronyms. Certified open data, either practitioner or associate or user. Thing about associate is that sounds like the end, coda. Right. So practitioner might be the way to go there, but again, I'm just trying to encourage people to share their thoughts either in the chat or verbally.
Definitely. And at the end, I'm going to show our email addresses so people can send in their questions or send in their volunteer applications if they so choose. Yeah, I'm sort of partial to the practitioner as well. That's good. Thank you, Connie. Another consideration is, are there already existing acronyms in use out there for other purposes? I believe that there is a CODP,
Ooh.
Certified Organization Development Professional or something along that lines, but
That's pretty obscure though. I think we can get away with it.
Yeah, maybe it's so different that we maybe could get away with it. We'll have to visit that. Then we have the specialist, creator, expert. I'm not sure what everyone's thoughts are on that, but if we were to go with the Explorer, then we already have a CODE. We have to come up with something other than expert here.
I'm obviously biased towards specialist because of the acronym.
Yeah, yes, definitely. So if anyone has any thoughts on this, please feel free.
Well, using CODs would create some confusion potentially.
Yes, that was the source of my joke. Yeah. I like Codex or Codex, like having the expert with a small x there. And I think expert would not be overselling what you're required based on the bullets here.
True.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, for a level 3 to be an expert. You could always just use X and then be confused with Elon Musk.
Oh gosh.
Yes. Yeah, codex. And then the top level here, we have master, manager, strategist, and professional.
Master might be a little gendered. P we've already used, S we've already used. I think this is the one where we are really looking for something different.
Sure. To be decided, I guess.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe developer, like CODD or COD squared.
yeah. Like Connie put champion in the chat here. That I like that too.
Get cloud providers. Good to know. Thank you, Jamie. Other Jamie. I
Another
mean,
thing you've talked about is having an exam as one of the criteria. So I'm curious as to what people think of that. Would that
very
be
curious.
would
Yeah.
that be here to get into this, or is that something that people would be willing to undertake?
Like open book, let's just say, for the sake of argument.
Sure.
Might also bearing on other aspects that we've talked about, like the credibility of it or the ease of creating course for it. We have that is possible. Yep. Proctoring online. Yep. Good. Okay.
Yeah, and the proctoring possibly could be something that would count towards recertification, right? Volunteer.
Sure. Absolutely. I imagine the first number of people certified will be the ones that we actually call upon to review portfolios or proctor exams. Experienced people in the sector, such as many of us here. Well, many of you.
Yeah.
I'm
And
not sure.
one way to kind of look and evaluate some of these things are looking at what level you yourself might qualify for. And looking at those proposed, levels and qualifications, do they make sense for somebody like you?
Training modules with a little quiz at the end. Okay, fair enough, Eric. Oh, absolutely, grandfathering is being considered.
Yep. And that's where we're
Architect.
mentioning like the springboarding, right?
Architect. We have already used the A thing, but architect, I really like that because I'm an INTJ. If anyone knows Myers-Briggs, apparently we're nicknamed the architects.
Yeah, I do like that architect as well.
I feel like this is a group we really want to stay in touch with going forward and sort of post things for review to this larger group. So perhaps we can, Yuri, through your good offices and Nathan through yours, we can find a way to stay in touch.
Yeah, definitely. So
Yeah.
I'll just put this up here and
Yeah. Alex has raised a hand.
Sorry, just maybe I missed it a little bit in the intro. And, if I think about other strong professional organizations that exist, they typically start with, the strong mission vision statement around what the responsibility or the reason for professional designation on it. Is that something we have already kind of structured, or is that to be determined?
We have the ingredients for it, the stuff that I mentioned at the beginning. Like I was just scratching the surface of the many reasons why certification of open data practitioners would be valuable and useful.
Right. Yeah. I think that when you have that solidified, that helps with the bulk of the rest of it, right? So if those if those goals are clearly outlined from that perspective, then the categorization, all that seems to fall into place a little bit simpler. But that's just my 2 cents.
Oh, I do. I appreciate those 2 cents for sure. And I did skip over a part in the green paper where I talked a bit more about along the lines of a vision. I mean, because I feel like I injected myself into that, but for everyone's consideration, I think of open data as a potential check and balance in society, not unlike, the usual executive, legislative, judicial, the news media, the fifth estate as they call it. I mean, it could be something along those lines if we really built up the critical mass of both producers and users about it. It became almost an assumption in society that this is something we're supposed to do, especially with journalism falling back so much lately. I think it needs a bit of a hand.
Paul, is the green paper something you think we should share with this group?
There are some unresolved comments. I would like actually on an urgent basis to work with you on resolving those comments. And then yes, I would love to share this. I feel like people would have a lot to say once they see the numbers and the little details and my estimates and the things we came up with for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be a great idea. And I also like the idea of a follow-up survey here with everyone who's joined us.
Absolutely.
There may
Get some
be,
response. That'd be excellent. Yeah, just want to push again. Go ahead, Yuri.
yeah, I think there may be some value in moving the green paper into a white paper that is more concrete with some of the specifics that have been talked about today. And there's been really great comments from the participants, and I would highly recommend that the people that are interested to join the working group. And even if you're only able to attend one meeting, there are things to be resolved and ideas that have come up through this event that I think would benefit from your contribution.
100%, absolutely. Eric, you have your hand up there.
Yeah, I just wanted to go on my point about the exam. I think a lot of people think the exam is like a barrier. As one of the few people I know who went through the GISP exam, 3 hours and 45 minutes in a proctored environment where your neck starts to hurt after 2 hours, and I think sort of like a self-paced training modules that we could develop in English and French with like a little quiz at the end before you can proceed to the next area of knowledge is a better option myself. Because we'd also have to think, okay, we need volunteers to help quote unquote mark the exams, approve the answers in the exams, and that kind of thing. I think it really cuts down a lot of work and eliminates a major barrier.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on that, Eric, in terms of the barrier. The one thing I'm always grappling with is, does an exam really do anything for credibility of something like this? Are people going to say, well, there's no test to make sure that you pass all the questions to make sure that you are a certified professional? Is that going to hurt us in terms of this credibility point? Or is this, or not really?
Well, to Eric's point, I've been on a lot of courses where they have, let's say, 8 modules, and after you've read the material for module 1, there's a quiz, and if you don't get the quiz, you have to go back and read it again.
Yeah.
So that approach, and that becomes very consistent, across the board. So I think that's not a bad way to approach it. But again, that takes some effort to create in the first place. But once it's created, then you could use it on an ongoing basis.
Definitely. And Brennan here had a comment about the DMVOK, which is the data management body of knowledge. Well, I guess he is an examiner. Yeah, maybe the test could be just only a weighted portion of the overall evaluation if we decide to go with the test. Good point.
We're at the end of this webinar, but certainly not the end of the discussion. So I just want to take an opportunity to thank Paul and Jamie for their contributions to as co-chairs for the working group and for this material. We will make this video available as soon as we can, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, and broadly distribute it to anybody that you think may have an interest. So again, thanks to the speakers and thanks to the participants. And I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.